Hi everyone and happy Sunday. So I had started on this picture. This is the buddy color and I've I need to go look and see her name. I've dropped it. Coloring Cassie on Instagram asked if I would buddy color with her, and we picked 50 vacation miniatures because I haven't been able to color in this yet, and I don't think she has either. So it was a great way to actually start the book, and there were a number of pictures I wanted to start, and so we settled on this one. And so I started the picture. I was going to color it off camera, and then I thought, there's pretty much a consistent process I follow with most Kameliya Angelkova images at this point. Occasionally I will add in some different stuff, but for the most part this is basically how I end up coloring them. So y'all seem to really like these images on Instagram, so I just thought I'd share and show you guys how I color the images, most consistently. So now, like I said, occasionally I will try watercolor, I will try pastels or pastel pencils or colored pencils, and I'll try some different stuff, but this, like I said, seems to be the most consistent thing I do. Alright, so the first thing I did is I went and picked a color palette, and I used Sarah Renee Clark's Color Companion. In her version 2, it is palette number 376, which is really bright with a lot of oranges and reds and purples, and it really fit my mood. And so I did that, and I'm going to list all of the colors that I used in the description, all the materials I used. So what I do first typically is I will pull a light version of the color, and typically I will pull those from my Ohuhu pastels, but I also dip into my other markers for some really light colors. So basically for each color in the palette I'm going to pull a light and a dark color. And like I said, the Ohuhu pastels generally are where I go to grab most of my light colors, but occasionally I will have to use other types of markers. In this case, you can see I'm actually using an Ohuhu pastel here. I used mostly Ohuhu pastels, a spree marker, Copic Aqua, and a Copic chartreuse. That was what I used on the limes. I decided they would be limes. And so the first thing I do is put a base layer of the lightest color down where I want it to go. And so I use that pastel red on the cherries. I'm using the pastel pink now. So I base everything in just the lightest marker or version of that color that I want it to be. And in this case, one of the things that makes this picture unique, of course, is the glass. And I wanted to create some effects for the fish that is behind the glass, of course, because it would look a little different. The fish that's in the, they's in the glass, and then create some effects for the glass itself. So that was kind of, like I said, every picture for the most part has some sort of unique touch, and so in this case, playing around with some effects on the glass was the way to play with, was my unique part of this picture. What I ended up doing, because I'm going to speed it up in a minute showing you guys laying down the base, is I actually come back through. So I laid down the base color, and then I come back through and put another layer of color on all of the fish that is above the glass, just to darken the shade just a little bit, because my assumption is it would look Yeah, I may be opposite thinking here, but it would look maybe a little lighter behind the glass. Now for the glass itself, I end up using a blue-gray color. I end up using BG3 for that. And then a BG1 to go over the purple and pink, which, because it was a lighter color, kind of gave it a weird effect. I'm not saying that was my goal, but it, you know, it looked okay when I did that. So let me speed this up a little bit here, and you guys can watch me go ahead and lay down the base for the rest of this image. Now, if it's a section I know I'm going to fill in with gel pen, like the cherry stems, I don't even bother with, you know, coloring those in. So here we go. Alright, now that I've got the lightest color down, I am going to come in with my dark colors. So here I'm starting out with my dark green. I am not 100% sure at this point whether I'm going to fill in the dark part of the limes with gel pen or not, so I'm just going to go ahead and, you know, fill them in with the dark green. If I go back over my gel pen later, then, you know, it's no big deal. So what I do with the dark colors is, like in this case, I ended up using the dark to fill in the outer rind of the lime. And then once I do that, you'll see me go in and draw a very thin sort of edge around the lightest color. Typically what I like to do in these pictures is to color them a light color and then edge them and create some different outline effects. I don't know if it's shadowing per se, because I mostly just outline them in the darker color, just to give a little bit of depth and a little bit of a nice effect between the light and the dark. Now, I would prefer a lot of times to use mid-tones as opposed to like the lightest pastel colors, but those are tricky. It's hard for me to consistently pull those. I usually end up pulling colors that are so close to the dark that you can't really see a significant difference between one color and the other. I was eyeing the Ohuhu Midtones marker pack to try with this, and I might do that in the future, but so you can see I've outlined there again just to give it just a little bit of a effect. I go real light with the tip of the Copic marker here because one of the good things is once you put a base of marker down, if you go back over it with marker again, it doesn't spread as much as the initial layer did, so you don't get as much bleed, but it can still happen. So you know, I would recommend gentle touches with markers. This is where the brush tip really comes in handy for coloring these types of images. I'm trying to figure out what was it I did. So the drink in the glass, I went over with, maybe it was the BG3? I can't quite remember. I went over it with a different color, so it looks a little more watery, which is kind of cool. I also try to leave a little white in the picture, so like in this case with the umbrella, I try to leave a little white. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to have any kind of background or not, and so I figured if I just left it plain and it was too much white, I could just come back and, you know, fill that in with another color. So here I am coming in with, I think I'm doing another layer of the light brown tan color or whatever that was. So now y'all can see me come in, and again I am being real gentle with the tip of this marker because I just want to go over the lines, and because this area has so many lines and so many small spaces, I don't want to lose that outline effect. So we'll go through the umbrella and then I'll show you guys the rest. Now, one of the things I did, so with the fish, I will outline with the dark color above the glass, like I'm doing here. What I did to kind of give it a little more faded effect behind the glass was I just outlined in the original pastel color I used for the parts of the fish that are under the glass. So it had some differences to it because obviously behind the glass it's going to look a little faded, not quite as sharp as it would on the outside of the glass. I'm pretty comfortable coloring like this, but like I said, this case the glass was the experiment, and I was like, okay, well, what can I do differently to really play up the effect of the glass on this? So I'd say one of these pictures, probably from start to finish, with all the outlining that I do with markers and gel pens, probably takes me about an hour and a half. If it's, you know, a picture about this complicated. So I just, you know, sometimes I outline in the dark marker, and then I like to outline in glitter gel pen as well to give a little more of an effect as well. And it may seem like overkill, like for sometimes this kind of comes down to what you enjoy doing in your coloring. So, outlining it in the dark one, then coming back through and outlining it in the gel pen is probably overkill, and you don't see too much a difference in the two, except the marker outline will give you, cover more space than the gel pen will. But I like the effect it gives. It's real subtle. It brings me joy when it's done, and so it's one of those things I don't mind spending the extra time to do it. If it's something you don't enjoy doing and it's a hassle and you don't really see a good result from the picture when you're done with it, then that's your call, but it's just one of those things I really like to do. So I went over the little umbrella stand and everything with a slightly darker color, leaving just a little bit of highlight there. I want to get better at detecting highlights and shadow. I try to play with it when I can, when it seems obvious to me, but for the most part I just wind up outlining the entire the entire image, and then maybe playing with some highlights with gel pen later. You'll see with the cherries in a minute, I do create a thicker line with the dark red on the bottom to kind of create a little bit of a shadow effect. So alright, so I'm going to speed this part up, and then we'll get to whichever step I do next, which I have lost now. So alright, so I think I forgot to start this right when I was doing this. So at this point I had decided on a background. I wanted, like a sunny background, orange or yellow orange. I just didn't want it to look dull, I guess. And so I wound up with pastels. I pulled out my chalk pastels. I think they're the classic colors. And then I used that yellow orange color around the edges. I do this step, if I'm going to use pastel, I do this step before I put in the glitter gel pen because it will dull the glitter gel pen. And it's a little harder to, and if you erase over the glitter gel pen, you lose some of the glitter. So I always do this step first, then I come through, erase around the edges like I need to, and then I come in with my gel pen. So one thing I did do, like I said, is I used a BG1 blue-green 1 marker on the purple and pink under the glass. And what I didn't realize is because it's technically a lighter color than those colors, that it would create kind of a hazy effect, which is what you're seeing right here. I don't think it's necessarily bad. It just wasn't what I was expecting, and I had kind of forgotten that it would probably do that. So there's a lesson. If you want to see what happens when you put a light marker over a darker marker, that's the kind of effect that you usually get. Is it looks a little splotchy, it looks a little definitely fades it out quite a bit. So could be used for a lot of stuff, so it's not necessarily a bad thing, just something to keep in mind. And I wasn't really paying much attention to when I put that down. So I ended up using the little ball and applicator that came with the Pebbles chalk. I started off trying to use a brush, one of the cosmetic type brushes, and this pastel is a little drier than some of the others, so you have to pull a lot of it up off the palette in order to get some substantial color. So I do come in with this to pull a little of the color off again, so maybe it's not quite so intense. I don't mind using the pastels. My biggest thing I couldn't quite figure out was what color I wanted to use, and ultimately I feel like this was a good choice. So this also smooths it out a little. The little applicator can be a little unwieldy around the edges and stuff, so this helps even it out a little. You can see my swatches underneath. I was trying to decide if I wanted to use a pan pastel. I have this really pretty, like very light blue-green color that, and this light blue color that would, pastel colors that would have been great, except, you know, I'm already using those colors in the drinks, so I didn't really want to use them again like that. So plus this yellow is actually in the palette, and I hadn't had an opportunity to use it yet, so that worked out really well actually. So once I put that down, I use this type of eraser and I pretty much go over all the edges of the image just to erase any of the pastel that may have gotten onto the line art and dulled it a bit. So, and then brush it off. I'm not going to show you all this. We'll just hop to the next part, which I believe will be the gel pen. Alright, actually what I do first is I come back in with that pastel purple and the pink, and I do another outline too, because the blue-green one kind of threw that off a little bit. So again, the glass part is just kind of playing around and seeing what effects I can get, because I don't really know what I'm doing. Let's be honest. I'm just trying to throw stuff at it and see what works. So let's see. I think next up are my gel pens, though it may take me a minute. Yeah, there we go. I'm starting to grab them, not those. I end up using the Arteza glitter gel pens and one of my Divical iridescent type pens. So the good news is this color palette was a really good one to match up with my gel pens. So what I do is pretty much the same concept of using the marker outlines, and I go over the line art with gel pens. And I put that down just so I'm not rubbing too much of the pastel off on my hands. So this this step again doesn't really show very much difference just looking at it, but like at the end when I'm sitting there holding it back and forth and stuff, it's subtle enough that like I said, I like it, and I'm willing to do this step just to get that effect because I like it so much. So I figured I'd show you guys the umbrella part again. Now sometimes I will outline, sometimes I will fill in. So in this case I outline here, I outline the inner parts of the lime with the light yellow green, but the lime itself I end up filling in with like the blue green color entirely in the rind, just because I wanted to. I just thought it looked pretty. I don't unless it's a basic palette, I don't really come in here with too much of a plan. I just kind of play as I go along and decide what I want to do as I go along. I will pick one or two things, like I may, in this case I didn't even know how I was going to do the color representation, and then I realized, well, they're going to be limes, and obviously the cherries are going to have red on them, and from that point that was pretty much the only things I knew when I first started this out, and just kind of went with the flow on it. So I carry a lot of flexibility with these pictures. I would like to watercolor more of them, but because of that Amazon paper, unless I treat the page, it can be very difficult to do that. And I just, a lot of times these are ones that are a little more low-key for me, and I just want to put some color down and not have to go through treating a page and doing all the prep things that I would need to do that. So we're going to look at a little bit of me filling this in, and then I'm going to speed it up. One of the things I end up doing at the end that I did off camera is so I go through, do all my gel pen work. Then I was looking at the glass and I was like, I really want to try the glossy accents on the glass just to give it some shine. So I go over the entire part of the, I think I was watching something at the time while I was doing this. I end up going over the entire part of the glass with the glossy gel accents, and then glossy accents, and then I end up going over the cherries too, because cherries tend to be shiny. So I thought that would be a cool effect. And then I come in with some white gel pen just to add some lines where I know there's some obvious highlights, like at the tops of the cherries. The bubbles in the glass get a little bit of a white highlight as well. So just to give you guys an idea of what I'm doing, and yeah, and then I will show you the finished picture. So let's go ahead and speed up the rest. And here is the finished picture with the glossy accents added. I wish, again, I'd had a mid-tone color. The only thing that I wasn't really thrilled about on this picture was I wish I'd had a mid-tone for the cherries. Here's a good still picture of it next to Sid's butt. I wish I'd had a mid-tone red for the cherries that I had been able to put in, because I feel like the lines are a little harsh on them, but overall I was pretty pleased with how this one turned out. This seems to be, like I said, pretty much the approach I'm taking to all my Kameliya Angelkova pictures, with the light marker, dark outlines, lining and filling in with gel pens, and then, like I said, kind of adding effects depending on the picture. So in this case I used pastels in the background, and then I used glossy accents in the glass part and on the cherries. So overall it turned out super cute, and so I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you to Coloring Cassie for asking me to buddy color with her. I'm hoping to get, I haven't had a chance to touch any of my minis books this month, so I'm hoping I can snag a few more this week. I will probably be using this method. So yeah, if you're ever curious what I did, ooh, excuse me, stretching, if you ever wondered what it was that I did to get my pictures to look this way, this is pretty much the process that I go through. So if you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments. I will put all the markers and the palette number and everything I used in the description. And Tuesday I will be back with something. I'd like to do a watercolor demo, but it really just depends on time and what I'm in the mood for. If not, then it may just be a random color in chat or something. I don't know. I miss doing my halfway through the year update on my 10 books to finish, so I probably should do that, to be honest, but we'll see what I'm in the mood for Tuesday. Friday will be an special 80s, my favorite child nostalgia coloring chat with Coloring Out an 80s New Wave by Joshua Dunbar. Next Sunday will be Completed Pages. The following Tuesday will be my kickoff for the August color alongs. I went through 3 different things before I got it right. For the August color alongs and showcases for July. So if you're gonna, post on Instagram, be sure to use the tags. I've got them both listed in the description. It's alphabet color IJKL, alphabet color 2022 IJKL, and then watercolor summer 2022 if you're using water anywhere. So, alright guys, thanks for watching, and bye for now.